The plaza of San Isidro fell silent as Mayor Donald Reyes climbed the gazebo steps, his beige suit stained with sweat.
$200,000, my own money, to whoever can heal Doña Luz.
His hand shook as he pointed at the gray mare collapsed in the dust, foam bubbling at her muzzle. 3 veterinarians had already walked away, shaking their heads. The mare was minutes from death. From the back of the crowd, a skinny arm rose, barefoot, a ragged yellow shirt, clutching a worn leather pouch.
What is this? A street urchin thinks he can do what 3 county vets could not?
The boy said nothing. He stepped forward, his large dark eyes fixed on the mare, holding the pouch higher.
Donald, he's just a child. Let him try. What harm can it do now?
If that pouch holds some swamp remedy, and she dies anyway, I'll have you thrown out of this town, boy.
The boy still did not speak. He simply raised the pouch toward the light, and the entire plaza felt the weight of the silence. But to the mare, Doña Luz was more than a horse. She was the heart of a campaign, losing ground every day.
This town and this mare, she's carried every one of us. I'll stake my own fortune to keep her standing.
Her heart is giving out, Mayor. Even if the foal survives, the mare won't last another night.
3 county veterinarians had come and gone, their bags packed, leaving behind only pity.
If she dies before the election, the voters will see me as a man who can't even save his own horse. I am finished.
But high in the church bell tower, a boy who owned nothing but a pouch and a promise had been watching.
Papa told me to use this only when a life was slipping and no one else could help. That time is now.
He could still feel his father's calloused fingers closing his own around the worn leather.
He was only a beggar, but he had made a vow, and the mare's eyes in the dust were calling him to keep it.
So he descended the tower, bare feet slapping cold stone, and walked into the plaza where the silence still waited. The crowd peeled back, their faces a mixture of pity and dread, as the boy padded toward the mare.
That pouch better hold a miracle, or you'll regret ever raising your hand.
Daniel pulled a yellowed paper from the pouch, its creases deep as old scars, and began to read aloud.
Bitter sage, manzanilla leaves, and the pulp of the night-blooming cactus, boiled together in clear water.
That's an old folktale. No vet in this state would stake a license on crushed cactus.
Donald, my grandmother used those herbs. Let him try for the mare, for everyone.
Fine, but if she stops breathing, you'll wish you'd stayed in that bell tower.
The boy nodded once, then crouched beside the fountain, grinding the bitter herbs against the stone.
Here, use my cup. It's clean.
The silvery water began to steam, and the scent of sage and manzanilla rose into the morning light. The mayor paced the gazebo, fanning himself with the stack of hundreds, his eyes never leaving the boy.
That brew is poison. I ain't letting some beggar finish off the mare.
He lunged for the cup, but Elena's hand shot out, blocking his arm before it could spill a drop.
Touch that child, and you'll deal with me. Let him finish.
Dr. Harper watched from the crowd, arms crossed, her professional skepticism crumbling into something like shame. As the sun bled out of the sky, the crowd thinned to a handful. Daniel never moved from the mare's head. He dipped the cup, and a few dark drops slid past her foam-caked lips. The mare's throat barely moved. Through the stained glass window of the church, the mayor watched, his fists clenched, his re-election slipping with every breath the mayor took.
Here, wrap this around yourself. You've done more for her than all of us.
The plaza settled into a cold vigil. Only the mayor's labored breathing and the boy's whispered prayer broke the silence. The first light of dawn touched the plaza, and the gray mare lifted her head from the dust with a shuddering groan. Doña Luz pushed herself upright, her legs trembling, her eyes finally open.
She's standing. God above, she's standing. The boy did it.
The remaining crowd erupted in sobs and cheers. But in the chaos, the yellowed recipe slipped from Daniel's exhausted fingers. Elena bent down and lifted the paper, her fingers trembling as she read the signature at the bottom. Her face drained of all color, and a thin cry escaped her lips before she crumpled toward the stones. Mayor Reyes caught his wife, but his eyes were on the paper, now clutched in her unconscious hand.
Dear God, it says Mateo Reyes.
The mayor's face went white as bone. His grip on Elena slackened. The name hung in the air like a curse. Daniel stood frozen, not understanding why his father's name had stolen the joy from the plaza.
Whose handwriting is that? That paper, it says Mateo. Whose recipe is it?
A forgery. Someone planted that name to embarrass me. The boy is a fraud.
My father gave it to me. His name was Mateo. He taught me the herbs.
Mateo Donald. That's your own brother's name. It can't be.
Remove this lying street rat from my plaza. He knows nothing about my family.
I knew Mateo Reyes. He was a gentleman, a horse doctor, and your own blood, Donald. You let him die homeless. And now his son has healed your mare. The silence is over.
The plaza erupted, 100 voices overlapping, shock, accusation, and the rising sound of betrayal.
Lynn Sanders, Channel 7. Mayor Reyes, is it true you had a brother named Mateo who died destitute?
The mayor's mouth opened, but no denial came. The cameras rolled, and the truth had found its teeth.
Yes, Mateo was my brother, but he drank himself into the gutter and left. This boy is just a thief using a dead man's name.
The lie slithered out with practiced ease, but his voice cracked when he saw Elena's face.
He found those papers in a gutter and saw a chance to extort a grieving town. Arrest him.
He taught me to mix the herbs, not steal. He said our gift was for forgotten creatures. I never stole anything.
Elena turned her back on her husband, her shoulders shaking. The crowd's murmurs sharpened into individual voices of outrage.
Liar. You've been feeding us dirt for 20 years while that boy slept in a tower.
Mayor, if your brother was a drunk, why did he write a veterinarian's recipe? And why did you bury his name?
He died with nothing. But he never said a bad word about anyone. Not even you.
The crowd surged, a wave of bodies pressing between the boy and the mayor, separating truth from power. But even as the mayor shouted for order, the cameras captured every frame, and Elena did not come to his defense. From the angry knot of townspeople, an old man in a sweat-stained work shirt pushed his way to the front, his finger already raised. Daniel recognized him, a man who once brought a broken mule to his father because no vet would touch it.
I remember the trial 20 years ago. A debt note that appeared from nowhere, and Mateo's land was taken the next day.
Shut your mouth. That was settled by the courts. You are slandering an elected official on live television.
The courts that you handpicked, Donald. We all knew, but fear kept us quiet.
Is he saying you forged documents to steal your brother's land? Mayor, are you guilty of fraud?
Elena clutched her handkerchief and staggered backward, her face a mask of dawning horror. The mayor's face purpled, veins bulging, as he searched the crowd for a friendly face, and found none.
My papa lost everything, and he never once called you a thief. But the truth is coming out now.
Tell the truth, Mayor. Did you frame your brother?
Elena stepped between the boy and the mayor, her hands trembling but her voice cutting through the noise.
I've known the truth for 20 years, Donald. I let you tell me Mateo abandoned us. No more.
Please, Senora. I only wanted to save the mare.
Tell them you framed your own brother, or I walk away from you forever.
The mayor's jaw worked open and shut. A beetle pinned under a lens, every exit sealed. The plaza held its breath, the only sound the soft whir of television cameras, and the mayor's quiet nicker.
Elena, it's not that simple. The pressures, the debt. I wasn't the only one who signed things.
Then say it was forged. Restore his name. Do it now, or you lose me.
Daniel clutched the pouch against his chest, a silent witness to the fracture of a house built on lies. And in that terrible stillness, the mayor looked at his wife and saw the last door closing. His voice broke as he surrendered the first sliver of truth, his hands gripping the gazebo rail for support.
There was a document. I was in debt, and Matteo refused to sign the land over. I never meant for him to be ruined.
A thunderous boo surged from the crowd, drowning the rest of his words before he could settle back into lies. Elena did not look back. She turned and walked toward the church, her silhouette rigid with finality. Daniel's face was stone. He did not weep. He simply watched the man who had stolen his father's name.
A document you forged? Mayor, you can't hide behind half-truths. Admit it completely.
It was complicated. The banks, the judges. I only wanted to protect my family's reputation. Matteo would have understood.
The laughter that answered him was bitter and cold. The mayor's shoulders sagged, and he slumped against the whitewashed rail. The cameras kept rolling, capturing not a beaten politician, but a man hollowed out by his own buried guilt. In that silence, everyone knew the truth, even if the full confession still hung unspoken in the morning air.
My father never cursed anyone. He only wanted forgotten creatures to have a second chance.
Then he reached into the pouch and drew out a second paper, yellowed and creased with years.
Before he died, my father wrote this. He told me to keep it until the world was ready to hear.
Lynn took the creased page and, with a steadying breath, began to read for the whole listening world.
I, Matteo Reyes, declare that the debt used to seize my land was forged by my brother Donald. He took everything I had, but I leave this world without hate. I forgive him.
The mayor's legs buckled, and he dropped to his knees on the dusty stones, a puppet with his strings cut. Elena buried her face in her handkerchief, and Father Ricardo lifted a trembling hand in the sign of the cross. A low moan rippled through the crowd, a collective release of 2 decades of unspoken grief. Daniel closed his eyes, and for the first time, the pouch hung loose in his hand, no longer a burden. The mayor, still on his knees, reached into his sweat-soaked jacket and pulled out a thick envelope.
A deal is a deal. Take it. Your father would have wanted you to have it.
Daniel's small, dirty hands closed around the money, but his eyes never left the man who had destroyed his father.
I don't want this for myself. I'll build a clinic in my father's name, where no creature is turned away.
Doña Luz limped forward and pressed her muzzle against the boy's chest, a silent seal on his promise.
I'll help you, Daniel, for Matteo, for all the forgotten ones.
From Channel 7, this is Lynn Sanders. Justice is a slow horse, but today it ran.
The crowd, still raw from confession, broke into uneven applause, not for the mayor, but for the boy who had unmade a lie. The mayor watched it all, still on his knees, his beige suit covered in dust, his re-election an impossible ghost. And by the fountain, a boy and a mayor stood side by side, the first stone of a new legacy already laid. Days later, the town gathered under the town hall lights, a chalkboard tally spelling the end of an era. Mayor Reyes lost by a margin no one had ever seen, the numbers a brutal verdict. The new mayor took the microphone. This victory is for the boy and for Matteo Reyes, a good man wronged. That roar carried all the way to a dark room where Donald Reyes sat alone, his tie loosened, his comb-over plastered to his scalp. On a flickering television screen, the plaza was alive with torches and music. But in his room, there was only the hum of regret. In the plaza, Daniel was lifted onto shoulders, his tattered shirt finally forgotten in the swell of joy. Doña Luz, decked in white flowers, followed the procession, her coat gleaming under the string lights. The mayor, who had been dying in the dust, now paced through a town reborn, every step a quiet rebuke to the man who had let her suffer. Children ran their hands along her flanks, and the boy who had once slept in a bell tower stood at the heart of it all. And on the edge of town, a lone figure in a crumpled suit watched the distant lights, the weight of a stolen legacy finally pulling him under. The morning after the election, the church bells rang not for Mass, but for a reckoning 2 decades overdue.
By the authority of this town, and in the sight of God, Mateo Reyes is declared innocent of every debt and dishonor. His name is restored.
A small brass plaque was unveiled on the church wall, its letters gleaming in the candlelight. Daniel placed a creased photograph of his father beside the plaque, his hands steady despite the tears on his cheeks. Elena stepped forward, her fingers trembling as she laid a single white flower at the base of the memorial. Outside the heavy wooden doors, Doña Luz stood under the morning sun, her ears pricked as if she understood.
Papa, I kept your promise. They know now.
Father Ricardo anointed the plaque and the photograph with holy water, his old voice steady in the silence.
I am sorry I believed him for so long. Mateo deserved better. You both did.
When the last hymn faded, a child ran outside and placed a wild flower in the mare's mane, and the town began at last to heal. That evening, in the silent house the mayor had bought with stolen land, Elena opened a worn suitcase on the bed.
I am leaving, Donald. Keep the house. I'll live in town and help Daniel build the clinic.
The mayor sat at the kitchen table, his head in his hands. He hadn't spoken in hours.
That boy saved your mare and exposed your sin, and still he carried no hate. I can't stay here.
He didn't argue. The man who had shouted down whole towns now sat in a quiet so heavy it swallowed sound. His eyes fell on an old photograph of 2 young men and a horse, its frame gathering dust.
Mateo would have forgiven you. I hope one day you can forgive yourself.
She didn't wait for an answer. The door clicked shut, and her footsteps faded into the evening. The mayor remained motionless, the photograph staring back at him, a ghost he could no longer bury. Outside, the sunset bled through the windows, but inside, the rooms filled with a silence that would last a lifetime. The brass sign over the door read Mateo's Healing Hands, and inside, Daniel wore a clean white coat, his hands learning the weight of a stethoscope.
Your father would be proud, Daniel.
Outside, Doña Luz grazed under the oak tree, her dappled coat shining in the midday sun. Elena arrived with a basket of bread, her visits now a quiet anchor in the rhythm of the place. At dusk, Daniel placed the worn pouch beside his father's photograph on the shelf, its leather soft from years of hope.
Papa, your name is safe. I kept my promise.
The clinic filled with the scent of sage and manzanilla. Just as the recipe had promised, the village children came every afternoon, their laughter ringing as they brushed the mare's mane. And in the stillness of the clinic, the boy who once raised a hand in a dusty plaza had become the healer his father always knew he'd be. Outside, the mare nickered into the night, and the scent of sage drifted through the town. In the morning, Daniel left the clinic for town, and the mare followed as if she had always been his shadow. Townspeople paused to nod, and some reached out to touch her gray hide. The mare was no longer a symbol, but kin. She carried the spirit of Mateo in every stride, her dappled coat a living memory of the man who once healed her kind. Daniel led her to the small church cemetery, where a fresh gravestone bore his father's name.
I kept your promise, Papa. Your name is clean.
The mare lowered her great head and nickered softly, as if answering for the man who could not. Daniel pressed his forehead to the cool stone, and for the first time, he let the tears fall without shame. When he rose, the sun was sinking, painting the sky in shades of amber, and rose. He swung onto her back, and they rode slowly down the lane, the church bell tolling behind them. The boy and the mare, the healer and the healed, two forgotten souls now forever, etched in the heart of San Isidro. In a cramped apartment on the outskirts, Donald Reyes sat in a threadbare chair, the beige suit a memory in the closet. A single bulb hung above, its light falling on a creased photograph in his hands. His thumb traced his younger self and the brother he had erased so completely he did not move. The clock ticked, each second a small, sharp indictment. After a long while, he set the photograph face down on the table, his hand heavy with years. No tears came. The well had run dry, leaving only a hollow ache where guilt should live. Outside, the town he once ruled glittered with healing, its lights a world he no longer touched. He did not need a prison cell. The walls of his own silence were enough. A church bell tolled, but he did not hear. He had forgotten how to listen, and the photograph lay there, two brothers frozen in a moment that could never be reclaimed. Festival lights strung across the plaza, and Doña Luz stood draped in marigolds, children weaving ribbons through her mane. A line of school children stood before the brass plaque, their teacher tracing the words, Mateo Reyes, with a reverent finger. Father Ricardo lifted water from the fountain and let it fall over the plaque, a quiet baptism of memory. The clinic doors never stilled. Dogs and goats and broken-winged birds found healing hands every hour. Elena knelt in the garden beside the clinic, planting sage and manzanilla, her hands finally at peace. Old men on benches told the story to anyone who sat down, the boy, the mare, the millionaire's penance. When a child asked why the gray mare was so gentle, another whispered, because she carries Mateo's spirit. The name spoken daily now, woven into greetings, market calls, and lullabies, no longer a ghost, but a cornerstone. At dusk, the fountain's water caught the last light, and the plaque shone, a quiet beacon for the unforgotten. San Isidro had learned that some debts can never be paid, only remembered, and that was enough. In the bell tower, no longer a homeless boy, but a young healer, Daniel rose to the first light. He slipped on the white coat that waited by his bed, his movements practiced and calm. Before leaving, he touched the worn pouch on the shelf, a talisman of his father's trust. Through the window, Doña Luz stood at the paddock rail, her great head turned toward him. His fingers lingered on the soft leather as if drawing courage from its seams. Then he stepped into the morning, the mare falling in step beside him as always. He smiled, not the wide grin of a child, but the quiet certainty of a boy who had kept his word. And so the boy who once held nothing but a pouch became the healer his father always knew he'd be. The clinic sign caught the sun, Mateo's name gleaming, and the day began. Long after the clinic was built and the mare grew old, the townspeople remembered that first morning. They saw again the mayor, sweating in his beige suit, fanning himself with $100 bills. They saw the gray mare collapsed in the dust, foam at her mouth, the world giving up on her. And they saw a boy in a yellow shirt, barefoot, clutching a worn pouch in his dirty hand. When every expert had failed, that boy raised his hand, and everything changed. The mayor's bounty, the mayor's life, the buried scandal, all cracked open by one silent gesture. Now, when they pass the fountain, they still see the red arrow in their minds, fixed on that boy. For it all began with a beggar boy who raised his hand, and he held nothing more than a recipe, a pouch, and a promise he kept to the end. The memory of that day remains as vivid as the first sunlight. And so the boy who once slept in a bell tower became the keeper of his father's name. Doña Luz carried the weight of memory in every stride, her gray coat a living monument. She was no longer just a horse. She was the bridge between a stolen past and a healed future. In the evening, quiet, her eye held the whole story, a dark mirror of everything that had been. If you looked closely, you would see a boy ragged, sun-darkened, with a pouch in his hand, a boy who raised his hand when the world had given up, and by doing so, changed everything. He kept his promise. He healed the forgotten. He restored his father's name, and when all the words were spent, there remained only the gentle rhythm of her breath. A heartbeat, deep and slow, told the world she lived, and that, in the end, was enough.